Elite Facts presents
Another 10 gruesome zombie movies.
10.
Zombieland. There, you happy? We included it on this list. Nah, we're just kidding. We actually kind of regret not putting Zombieland on the previous list, as it was genuinely a good zombie film, as well as being a fantastic comedy film. However, we thought that both Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead, having a similar sort of presentation with its comedic approach, we decided we should only include one of them on the previous list. That being said, Zombieland is pretty much the American version of Shaun of the Dead, only on steroids. This film is without a doubt not only one of the most creative zombie films you can watch, but also one of the funniest. Following a vicious outbreak related to mad cow disease that has ravaged the earth, the film follows a group of 4 survivors who are trying to survive through the outbreak. The film stars Woody Harrelson as Tallahassee, who is without a doubt one of the funniest and coolest characters you'd ever want to find in a zombie film, Jesse Eisenberg as Columbus, Emma Stone as Wichita, and Abigail Breslin as Little Rock. The film includes, along with 28 Days Later and the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead, and somewhat popularized the fast zombie, as more and more films started using this type of zombie following the release of the previously mentioned films. The film is tons of fun and even gets a star-studded cameo from Bill Murray. What's not to like?
9.
REC. Oh dear God, this film is just straight up scary. So unlike most of the films mentioned on this list and the previous list, this one just straight up takes the horror approach. No nonsense whatsoever. REC is a Spanish horror film directed by Jaume Balaguero and Paco Plaza that takes on a more found footage style of filming. Now, before any of you groan at the idea of the found footage gimmick, this film was released before the whole found footage craze started to become popular. The film follows a Spanish late-night television reporter, Angela Vidal, through the lens of her cameraman, Pablo. During one report of the happenings in a local fire station in Barcelona, the duo follow a team of firefighters who get a call from an apartment building nearby about a trapped woman. When they arrive, they find the apartment's residents huddled in the lobby. They go upstairs to find a woman who is obviously distressed. What follows is a night that none of them will ever forget.
8.
I Am Legend. Now, this one you could argue isn't completely a zombie film. The creatures in this film may have the speed and agility that the zombies from the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead had, but they are also nocturnal and have the intelligence of vampires. Well, screw it. We're classifying them as zombie hybrids, just as an excuse to add it to this list. This film is incredible. The film stars Will Smith as Dr. Robert Neville, a seeming sole survivor of a plague who now lives his day-to-day life in the ruins of New York City. While stranded there, he is constantly searching for a cure for this strain of infection, yet is uncertain if there are any non-infected humans left in the world. This whole film is just a roller coaster of emotions and is definitely worth your time.
7.
Return of the Living Dead. How did we forget this one? So, in the 1980s, the market was starting to become oversaturated with zombie films, much like it is right now. The market was littered with budget B-movie zombie films and mostly terrible Italian gore-fest zombie flicks that all followed George Romero's formula for a zombie movie. You know, the slow-walking, brain-dead variety of creatures. Well, there was an alternative to this in the 1980s. So back when Night of the Living Dead was first under production, it was actually directed by 2 people, George Romero and John A. Russo. Pretty common knowledge to anyone that's a fan of the genre, but still worth mentioning. After they both went their separate ways, Russo was able to retain the rights of the Living Dead title. Instead of following the same style of zombie that was used in Night of the Living Dead, Dan O'Bannon, who was hired to write and direct the film, instead went with a more unique approach. Instead of these zombies being dumb and slow, they were actually smart and fast. The film took a more comedic approach too, so the film focused on a group of rebellious punks who get caught in the middle of the zombie outbreak in a graveyard filled with the living dead. The film itself finds a perfect balance between horror and comedy that gives viewers an enjoyable experience.
6.
28 Weeks Later. Arguably better than the first film, 28 Weeks Later takes everything the first film did and expands and improves on it all. The film takes place 6 months after the rage virus was inflicted on the population of Great Britain, and the U.S. Army helps to secure a small area of London for the survivors to repopulate and start again. But not everything goes according to plan. The film features the idea of people who carry the rage virus in their blood but don't suffer any of the symptoms the infected do. Instead, these carriers have the ability to spread the infection. It's a simple yet interesting concept that surprisingly hasn't been done that much in zombie films.
5,
Land of the Dead. It wouldn't be a list about zombie movies without a Romero film. Now, as we stated, we're not mentioning the 1969 Night of the Living Dead film since it popularized the genre, and we've already mentioned Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead on our previous list. But Land of the Dead is a polarizing film among fans, as a lot of people enjoy it but don't think it matches up to the previous 3 films in the franchise. In some respects, they're right. Land of the Dead is set several years after Night of the Living Dead. Survivors of the outbreak have set up outposts across the United States. One outpost in the city of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania contains a feudal-like government. Bordered on 2 sides by rivers and on the 3rd by an electric fence, the city has become a sanctuary for the living. However, even in safety, life is still a living hell for most of the survivors who have taken shelter within the confines of the city. The sanctuary has been built up into 2 social groups. The rich and powerful live in a luxury high-rise called Fiddler's Green, while the rest of the population subsists in squalor. The zombies in this film are much more evolved compared to previous George Romero films. The idea of zombies retaining their intelligence was an idea that was only touched upon in Romero's previous film, Day of the Dead. However, in Land of the Dead, the film goes more in-depth on the creatures' personalities, as they're shown at the start of the film to have somewhat continued on with life as if they never became zombies to begin with. Hell, half the time they don't even eat people, as most of the zombies showcased in this film are shown picking up and using weapons. Honestly, this movie might not be as good as the first 3 Romero zombie flicks, but it's definitely an interesting film that's worth checking out.
4,
Slither. Slither is a film that doesn't get enough recognition. When it was first released, it was a commercial flop at the box office, as it only earned $12.8 million on a budget of $15 million. But in recent years, however, the film has gained a cult following, as it has been said to be a perfect blend between George Romero's zombie films and the classic sci-fi horror film, The Blob. The story is as follows. A meteorite crashes to Earth in a small town. A man by the name of Grant sees this weird egg-shaped meteor on the grass, and when he touches it, the egg releases a sort of sparrow with an alien parasite that dominates Grant's brain. Over the next few days, Grant has an insatiable hunger for meat, and while his hostage body is transforming, he builds a nest of alien slugs in his cellar. Grant infects Brenda, and the slugs attack the human beings in Wheelsy, possessing their bodies. Starla, the local sheriff Bill Party, and the survivalist Kylie Studemeyer try to find a way to stop Grant, the leader of a new breed of starving zombies. This film is insane.
3,
The Dead, 2010. One of the more grounded zombie films on this list, The Dead takes a more serious approach to the genre, unlike most films hopping on the zombie bandwagon during this time. The film is set in Africa as an American mercenary named Brian, the sole survivor of a plane crash, has to run through a number of different obstacles and challenges ahead of him in the form of the undead as he tries to find a way out. On his journeys, he runs into a local African soldier gone AWOL in search of his son, who rescues Brian from certain death. The 2 of them decide to travel together in probably one of the most grounded experiences a zombie film could present the viewer. Honestly, it's worth a watch.
2,
Wormwood, Road of the Dead. Okay, now we remember seeing this film in stores in the budget DVD section. At first glance, this film doesn't look that good, and usually when it comes to budget films, that's almost always the case. However, Wormwood, Road of the Dead is surprisingly really fun to watch. The film follows a talented mechanic by the name of Barry, a family man whose life is torn apart on the eve of a zombie apocalypse. His sister, Brooke, is kidnapped by a group of gas mask-wearing soldiers and experimented on by a psychotic doctor. While Brooke plans her escape, Barry goes out on the road to find her and teams up with Benny, a fellow survivor. And together they must arm themselves and prepare to battle their way through hordes of flesh-eating monsters in a harsh Australian bushland. Usually, mashup-style films suck, but the idea of taking themes of a post-apocalyptic world like Mad Max and applying it to the zombie apocalypse, well, that seems like a perfect fit.
1,
Planet Terror. This film is on the list for the simple fact that it is literally insane. For anybody who's not familiar with Robert Rodriguez, he's essentially a Quentin Tarantino that puts a Mexican spin on all of his work. With work such as From Dusk Till Dawn, which was actually written by Tarantino and directed by Rodriguez, Machete, and the Mariachi trilogy, it's pretty safe to say that Rodriguez is a madman. Planet Terror is a film directed by Rodriguez as a part of the double feature called Grindhouse. The plot is as follows. After an experimental bio-nerve gas is accidentally released at a remote U.S. military base in Texas, those exposed to the gas turn into flesh-eating, mutating zombies out to kill. An assortment of various people, including a stripper named Cherry, her shady mechanic ex-boyfriend Ray, a strong-willed doctor, the local sheriff, and an assortment of various other people, must join forces to survive the night as the so-called sickos threaten to take over the whole town and the world. It's just pure madness.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.